Why are so many Islamist hate preachers determined to come to Britain? Mohammed Bajor has praised Hamas, praised martyrdom, and is accused of spouting anti-Semitic nonsense. Here he is praising the October 7th attacks.
Oh, people of Gaza, don't ever think that Allah is not aware of what's happening. Oh, people of Gaza, you have scarred the enemy, a scar that will never ever be forgotten. Oh, people of Gaza, you have given an Iman boost to the whole Ummah. You have revived the Iman in our hearts. You have reminded us, what does the word Izzah mean?
Here he is saying that Muslims should hate non-believers' beliefs.
And this is my advice to my brothers and sisters who go in interfaith. Interfaith is extremely important, especially for us living in the West. But be very careful. Some people fall into that statement. Oh, you call him Jesus, you call him Yahweh, you call him Buddha, and we call him Allah. We are all the same. You're out of Islam. You're out. You're supposed to hate. You're supposed to hate, not the non-believer, to hate his belief. You are supposed to hate his belief. It could be your wife. You're going to hate your wife. You hate, and she knows that you hate that belief. She must bada. It's clear. They must know that you hate that belief. But you respect them and you treat them like Allah told us, لا ينهاكم الله.
He seems to promote an extreme interpretation of Sharia law, including cutting off people's arms and hands when they steal.
I love everything about Islam, but Sheikh, this cutting the arm when somebody steals is barbaric. Barbaric? Out. You're talking about a rule of Allah, barbaric? How dare you? Who made this rule? The most merciful. Ahkam al-Hakimin, the most just, the one who will never ever make anyone feel unjust.
Look, you get the picture. Anyway, he was advertised to be arriving in Britain this weekend and speaking at 3 locations, and one of them was Didsbury Mosque, which is the same mosque that Manchester Arena bomber Salman Abedi and his family attended. After Salman Abedi blew himself up in an arena full of children, members of that mosque said, "We didn't radicalise him. We would have done anything to prevent this attack." They said that they'd been smeared, they'd been demonised. Well, an inquiry found that the mosque didn't do enough to stop extremist literature from being distributed at an open day. I mean, even if they didn't print the leaflets themselves. Well, look, we contacted Didsbury Mosque today, and they've now told us that their venue had been booked by a third party. They didn't know this preacher was due to speak there, or they've cancelled the event. In fact, today, after we here at GB News and the Daily Mail raised the issues, all Mohammed Bajor's events have now been cancelled. So I think that's the second one in a couple of weeks that we have managed to stop, basically. I mean, this is the latest in a long line of Islamist preachers who've come to Britain, or at least tried to. Every single place that has agreed to platform them should be investigated. Every single person who agreed to attend these events should be investigated. But do you remember this guy?
Salam alaikum. Good morning, everyone, and thank you to the leaders and elders that have afforded me this opportunity to speak to you personally. The police are equipped, we're well trained, and we very much will be directly dealing with any of that sort of issue on behalf of everyone that lives in the West Midlands. Shukran.
Shukran. The Home Secretary still hasn't sacked him, but she's about to be told, reportedly, by the Home Affairs Select Committee that they don't think he told the truth about why he banned Israeli fans from coming to Birmingham. So she's said now in the last few minutes, literally in that latest ad break there, apparently she is prepared to say that she's got a vote, she's got no confidence in him if that report comes back and says that they want him gone. But here's the fascinating bit of all this for me. Yesterday, this piece of information came out. The leader of a Birmingham mosque helped to appoint the West Midlands Police Chief Constable, Craig Guilford. Why on earth are mosque leaders getting a say on who becomes a police chief in Britain? The best time to have pushed back on this stuff was years ago. The next best time is right now. We need to end this madness.
We're living in a time of what feels like pretty significant social change, and it makes us question things that we've even taken for granted for decades. And one of those at the moment that people are wondering about is actually money. Is the money in your bank account safe? Should you be investing elsewhere? Are we looking at a potential global crash? What will it mean for your savings? Is there a way that you could be using your money that might be outside of government control even? Well, TallyMoney is potentially one solution. So I'm delighted to say that I'm joined today by the CEO and founder of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. What is TallyMoney?
Well, at TallyMoney, you basically get gold you can spend. So we give people an individual account in their name, everyday account. They get a sort code, an account number. They use that account just like they would pounds from their bank, but it's milligrams of gold that we brand as Tally.
Okay. Why would you do that, though? What is the benefit to the customer instead of just having a normal pound sterling account?
Gold's performance against the pound is above 11% per annum over the last 25 years on average. But we still need money in our daily lives, and we have savings. We know that it's good common sense and prudent to save up for things, not just living credit. You know, whether it's a holiday or a rainy day, your retirement planning, you need to have money in your life, basically, that you can rely on, that's dependable, that nobody meddles with, that nobody can weaponise against you, which is another element of government control when it's the government currency, which we could talk about another time. And it should be pretty simple and straightforward, and that's what we deliver at Tally. And really, we just want people to feel safe and happy with their money. There was a time when the bigger your bank balance, the more confident you felt. Now it's like, I need to do something with it. I can't leave it there. In Tally, you can.
Okay, brilliant. Cameron Parry from TallyMoney, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bev.
Let's get the thoughts of my panel. Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, broadcaster and journalist Benjamin Butterworth, and Reform member and former Tory party chairman Sir Jake Berry. Right, two stories rolled into one here. Let's start with these radical preachers. So, Carol, they keep trying to come, they keep being advertised as coming, they keep finding venues to come, and they keep finding an audience or people who will be willing to go. But what do you think this says about modern Britain?
Well, it says what it says about our politicians, and from what you've demonstrated on there about our police forces, they are under the cosh of Islamists in their area. You know, we've talked about, you know, you've shown a picture of Craig Guildford there. We know he was appointed by a panel that had the boss of a mosque on that panel. You know, community leaders and mosque bosses should have no say in what's going on in this country. And yet, we have, day after day, we have politicians and our police bowing down to Muslims in this country in order to keep their jobs. That can't be happening. And that involves allowing these preachers to come to this country. No preacher should be allowed to come to this country if they're preaching terror or supporting terror. And the imams in this country who live in this country who are doing the same thing should also be chucked out. This can't be allowed to happen because it galvanises people into committing violence.
Yeah, I mean, it just come just a couple of days after the UAE said that they weren't going to send students here because they were afraid that they would be turned into radical Islamists just by virtue of going to university in Britain, which, of course, the likes of Rory Stewart said was a lie and it was fake news, and it's turned out to be true, and he's had to apologise. So, well done. Rory Stewart, always 100% accurate all the time, isn't he, that guy? Jake, why is the leader of a mosque helping to appoint a police chief in Britain?
Well, I think it's the fact that the police forces up and down our country are afraid of their own shadow almost, aren't they? They've gone from being that tough force of, you know, law enforcement people who would go in with no fear nor favour regarding your race, background, religion and enforce the law rigorously against you, to being kowtowed by minority groups in communities. So I guess it was just to appease this minority group. It's completely the wrong thing to do. By the way, Patrick, it's not just about him being a leader of a mosque. If someone said the Bishop of Liverpool should be in charge of appointing the chief constable for Liverpool.
We're a Christian country.
Yeah, and there is, but I don't think religious leaders should, you know, your religion shouldn't have anything to do with how the law is enforced.
But also,
so this is completely wrong. It's wrong as a religious leader. But what makes it particularly worrying, I think, is this follow-on connection with the way the chief constable has then behaved in the job, and I think that shows a police force under the thumb, and people see that.
Well,
we know Guildford bowed down to Islamists over the banning of the Maccabi fans. We know he did. He actually, because he'd been told that these violent Islamists were arming themselves, and he also, they put out... It was fake information about what they'd been told by the Dutch police. The Dutch police have since said the advice they gave them was greatly exaggerated by the Midlands force.
But on this, so Benjamin, I'll put this to you. So if the leader of a particular mosque, and you know he's done that, helps to appoint you for a particular job, in this case, obviously a police chief, and then a flashpoint happens, like... Jewish Maccabi fans want to come to watch their team play against Aston Villa in Birmingham, and that mosque says, we don't want them here. You're compromised, aren't you?
No, I
shouldn't be, but I think he probably is.
I think that's a mistaken way to look at it. I mean, there are several points. Firstly, the guy that has praised Hamas should not be allowed here because Hamas is proscribed and they've murdered and abducted British citizens. So that one's straightforward. The second question of whether he made a mistake with the dealing of Maccabi Tel Aviv seems pretty obvious. He did that wrong and it was an insult to the Jewish people. But does that mean that having a community leader that represents a very significant part of the West Midlands should be excluded is wrong?
It's not a significant part. No, because you can't say that. The Muslim population accounts for 17% in the West Midlands.
Well, that's a significant part. That's a fifth of all the people in West Midlands.
And white people are 64%, so it's not significant.
Well, I would suggest that 1/5 is significant. But what I would say is that there were 53 people on this panel, and they decided on this person unanimously, as I understand it. So it wasn't as though it was this individual imam or mosque leader that got him the job. Now, we have a long history in this country of policing by consent. It works well. It's the reason why we don't have scenes like in France and America of shooting down protesters, thank goodness. And you would lose that at our peril. And I would also just point out, to finish, that you would expect synagogue leaders, rabbis, to be consulted, given the level of threat to Jewish people, and so it makes sense to include various stakeholders.
Look, we've got... it's undeniable we've got two-tier policing in this country. You just have to look at the story over the weekend where a pro-Palestinian mob protested outside a kosher restaurant in Notting Hill. And the police stood by and did nothing as they attempted forcibly, through protests, to stop diners going in, to shut that restaurant for the night. Can you imagine what the police would do if a group of white people turned up outside, say, a Bangladeshi restaurant that was owned by Bangladeshi Muslims and said, we don't want Bangladeshis in our community? This, that one incident over the weekend and things like we've seen about the appointment of chief constables, it is proof positive that we have two-tier police in this country. We have surrendered our streets, in many cases, to the Islamists, and police chief constables have been part of that problem.
Patrick pointed out that Shabana Mahmood is thinking of saying that she has no confidence in Craig Guildford.
About time.
Shabana Mahmood knew that he was going to ban Maccabi fans 8 days before it was announced. She has also known that Guildford exaggerated the evidence he'd been given by Dutch police, and she has done nothing about that. Why not?
Well, it's also her area, this.
Yes.
And she may very well lose her seat. See, this is the thing. Yet again, if you look at those stories there about the leader of a mosque being on a panel that helped to decide the chief constable, mosques being consulted about whether or not they wanted to ban the fans, Shabana Mahmood, in a heavily Muslim seat, at risk of losing her seat, is now being asked to take a strong stand on an issue involving the Muslim community. There's a lot of compromising issues here.
Sectarianisation of British politics.
Add to that, the SAG group in Birmingham City Council, which banned the fans, actually had 2 Muslim councillors on that panel. Just
to bring it back to the first story, that guy is this kind of like nutty hate preacher, basically, who was due to come. This is the latest in a long line of these. We had another one last week that we managed to stop as well by actually alerting the Home Office to it. Yeah, if it wasn't for people online seeing these posters or seeing these things. We'd be none the wiser. And then before you know it, someone like him turns up on a speaking tour of the UK. But the concern for me, Benjamin, is how many people seem to want to go and see these people. And they can't keep pleading ignorance. The reason why you if someone said to you, do you want to come to this event? Who's speaking? Never heard of him. Well, then you wouldn't go, would you? It'd be ridiculous. So they obviously know who he is. They obviously know what views he's got. They obviously like him, which is why they would go and see him. So that indicates that there's a big undercurrent of really quite damaging Islamist views in this country.
Well, first of all, I think it's unfair on Shabana Mahmood. She voted to prescribe Palestine action. She's introducing much tougher immigration rules. And we will see in a few days if she decides to strip this man of his job. And then, you know, you should acknowledge that if he does.
What he did since November.
But there is a problem in this country with Islamic extremism in mosques that has been ignored. And I think we do that at our peril because so many cases, you know, if you're a gay kid growing up in one of those communities, what chance do you have? We saw it a couple of years ago in Birmingham when there were horrific protests, and we saw the same in Batley in Yorkshire, against gay people being acknowledged in these schools, in secondary schools, of self-appointed community leaders. There is a problem, but that doesn't mean that you don't try and engage the reasonable people in that community, because if you exclude them, then you have a much bigger breakdown in relations.
The police chiefs, I mean, I'm fascinated to know. The question for me, following on from this, is how many police forces have police chiefs that have been voted on by the leader of the local mosque?
I would think it's all of them. But, you know, if you think about the great institutions in this country, you know, the police have fallen so far, so quickly in terms of the public opinion. And the wisdom of crowds in the British public, they are just saying, look, there's something not right about police in this country. It doesn't feel fair. It feels like it's been captured by one community in favour of that community. We can't really disagree with the British people, because if you look at the facts, we may not have absolute evidence and point at every single individual case, but if you speak to the British public, you know, they feel that policing has fallen and it's been captured, and I personally think they're right.
Yeah, it's becoming increasingly hard to deny, because more and more of this stuff is coming out. And look, for me, the reason why this is so important is it's just a personal view of mine. The great battle of our time is how we deal with extreme Islam in the West, not just in Britain, but in the West. But in Britain, I think we have an especially bad problem with it. It's also how we deal with things like the Pakistani rape gang scandal and stuff like that. And if we are in any way compromised as a country, like police chiefs have been appointed by imams, or, you know, all of this stuff, or they're living in fear, or you've got, you know, kind of radical preachers down at the local mosque all the time, and you're not banning them. Like, I just think we're not going to be able to handle it. It's terrible news for Britain if that's the case. But anyway, we did approach Mohammed Barjour for comment. He did not respond. We did go to Disbury Mosque, and they said the trustees did not approve this event being held at Disbury Mosque, and the booking of our hall by a third-party organiser has now been cancelled. All official speakers invited to Disbury Mosque undergo a rigorous vetting process to ensure full alignment with our policies and compliance with UK law. The trustees were investigating how the mosque name appeared on the advertisement and social media. We reject all forms of racism and hate. So we went to the Home Office. Now, they've said there is no place in the UK for foreign nationals who spread hate or push extremist ideas. Anyone intent on stirring hate or dividing communities will not be allowed to enter into the UK. Oh, good, we've got more. In a previous statement, West Midlands Police said a huge amount of planning went into the operation. This is obviously in relation to the Maccabi Tel Aviv thing, with the aim of preventing crime and disorder and disruption to the game and keeping everyone safe. The operation achieved its aims of keeping everyone in attendance safe, and this is down to the hard work of all the officers and staff from West Midlands Police and other forces around the country. Do I potentially slander anyone else? No? Good, OK.